In March of this year near Buga, Colombia, someone filmed a silver sphere zipping through the sky, which then supposedly fell to Earth. It was recovered and scientists began doing all sorts of research on it. So what is this sphere? Is it extraterrestrial in nature, or is it just some sort of elaborate hoax designed to beguile those who want to believe? Join me as we delve into the nature of this phenomenon on today's episode of The Weekly Strange. Hello and welcome to The Weekly Strange. I'm your host, Jon F. Merz, author, actor, adventurer. Here on the show, we try to keep up with the latest happenings in terms of strange events, cryptids, UFOs, the paranormal, and just, weird stuff in general, especially since so much of what I write happens to deal with that. And that's really where the origin of this show actually came from, the millions of browser tabs I have open on my laptop. With that said, timely topics are sometimes more interesting to me simply because they just happened. They're new, so to speak. And so when this popped up onto my screen, I thought it would be kind of cool to come out and do a special episode, especially since it's Friday the 13th, and, it just ties into that, and I thought we'd have some fun with it. And especially since the newest episode of The Other Side of Midnight will not be dropping until next Friday, I wanted to make sure that my subscribers had something to watch that was new, and so here we are. On March 2nd, near Buga, Colombia, people began filming and reporting that there was a silver sphere flying through the sky. And not super high up either. It was flying at relatively low levels. And at one point in the video, which I'll take captures of throughout this one, you can see it over here, and I'll also link to it, to the original video that was on X. At one point, it seems to hover over power lines. Now, it was about the size of a soccer ball, and it was captured on camera hovering over those power lines. And then it rather inexplicably falls from the sky and crashes into the earth below. And from there, things get a little murky, as they often do, especially when you're talking about strange things. And especially when you're talking about strange things that happen in another country. But somehow it got recovered. One way or another, the sphere wound up in researchers' hands, and they started studying the object, trying to determine its composition, origin, and pretty much any details they could glean from it. After all, it's not every day that you see a silver sphere zipping through the air. Well, not unless you happen to watch Phantasm all the way back in 1979, like I did, and then you had nightmares about the sentinel spheres chasing you down hallways exactly like they did in the movie, and the tall man and all that good stuff. Now, the team of researchers that began studying this sphere was led by Jose Luis Velasquez, who is an X-ray specialist. They began the task of studying the sphere, and it was documented on that video that I talked about earlier. And it showed the results of their experimentation, which naturally, given Velasquez's expertise, included subjecting the sphere to X-rays and recording the results. Among the discoveries was that Velasquez noted that there appeared to be no welds or joints or rivets that held the sphere together. In his words, if there had been, then that might have meant that the sphere was made by humans. Now, I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that. I'm sure that there are plenty of ways to join things together without rivets and welds, but for the purposes of our show today, we'll just go ahead and go with that. But without any welds and joints, Velasquez is confounded by the origin of the sphere. Now, he further noted that after using X-rays in an attempt to peer through the sphere, that it appeared to consist of 3 layers of metal. And at the core of the sphere, there were what he called 9 microspheres that were somehow embedded into the core. They're not arranged particularly well, as you'll see in the video, but they are there in sort of a haphazard pattern. The exterior of the sphere is also covered in strange symbols, which have, at least so far, defied any sort of explanation. For his part, Velasquez seems convinced that the sphere is from someplace other than Earth. He is supposedly going to continue researching the sphere, doing tests on it, that sort of thing, and note any interesting research and findings as necessary. But not everyone is inclined to agree with him that the sphere is alien in origin. Among Velasquez's detractors is one Julia Mossbridge. Now, Mossbridge is a member of the University of San Diego's Physics and Biophysics Department. She's got a doctorate from them. Now, she's also the founder of the rather interestingly titled Institute for Love and Time. The Institute for Love and Time, aka TILT. TILT's purpose is to use some type of web app to help people reach better mental wellness, meditate, and connect with their past, present, and future selves. And it really makes me wonder why exactly the reporter for People magazine, which is where I got most of this information, chose to ask her any questions about it. But there you go. According to Mossbridge, the sphere looks like a really cool art project, quote unquote, and not something not from this earth. But I suppose that's what you get when you ask someone with a PhD in physics who also happens to be running a new agey institute whose website feels a little bit more like a ayahuasca retreat and a lot less like a scientific research facility. To Mossbridge's credit, however, she did stress the importance of bringing something like this to an actual research facility that is more geared to researching these types of objects. She specifically suggested that Velasquez bring it to the Galileo Project. The Galileo Project was founded by Harvard University astrophysicist Avi Loeb and aims to authenticate and study potential extraterrestrial artifacts through rigorous scientific research. Mossbridge was apparently unimpressed by Velasquez using X-rays to try to study the sphere and make some discoveries of his own. And perhaps that's a fair criticism. After all, the sphere landed in another country, and that country presumably has its own set of protocols for dealing with those events. And that's fine. It's not necessarily imperative that everyone do things the way we do. In fact, some would say that perhaps Velasquez's seemingly unorthodox approach to trying to study the sphere might actually be a novel way to do so. Who knows? At this point, the ball, is in Velasquez's hands, and only time will tell whether or not he decides to follow the advice dished out by Mossbridge and her Institute for Love and Time, or if he keeps soldiering on with his team. For now, the mysterious sphere from Buga, Colombia, will remain just that, mysterious. At least until such time as Velasquez either allows others to study the sphere or else comes up with his own theories about its origins and nature. Hopefully the Buga sphere doesn't have any of those blades in it the way the Sentinel spheres and Phantasm did. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange, our very first Friday the 13th episode. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and be sure to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads. Also, drop me a comment and reach out via email at jfmthepulseofimagination@gmail.com. And please be sure to check out the other show that I host, The Other Side of Midnight, where I talk to callers all about their paranormal experiences. That new episode will be out next Friday. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to check out our past episodes as well. For now, thank you very much for watching and listening. I'll see you next week here on The Weekly Strange.